Fellow babies, welcome back to this week's Pachter Factor, brought to you on SIFTD.net. If you're a subscriber, you're seeing this first. If you're not, you should be, but you can be seeing this a week later on YouTube. SIFTD.net has something coming up for the holidays. You can get a gift subscription. You can request it. If you'd like to request it on the site, you can go to SIFTD.net/gifted, or you can put this on your Amazon wish list and you can request that one of your loved ones honor you with the privilege of making you a SIFTD.net member so you can see Pachter Factor real time when it's broadcast. Those of you who are not on SIFTD.net, we understand everybody can't afford it or maybe chooses not to afford it. We'll have it on YouTube a week later, and so there's Pachter loving for all of Pachter's fellow babies. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor. Let's get to the questions. Our first question this week comes from SIFTD, the SIFTD website, from Kevin. How can a company like Konami legally keep a person like Kojima away from an award show? I think that, and what Kevin's talking about is the Game Awards show, the Jeff Keighley show that was held in Los Angeles on December 3rd, I believe it was. Konami told Mr. Kojima that he could not represent the company and accept an award on their behalf. And I think that legally, when a game is published, the game is owned by the publisher. I mean, obviously it depends on who the publisher is and who the developer is. But in the case of a game like Metal Gear Solid, that is a franchise that's owned by Konami. The award technically is awarded to Konami. I think if the award was for Best Video Game Director, and so Mr. Kojima is getting the award as a director, they probably couldn't have kept him away. But if the award is for, Best Action Game or Best Stealth Game or Best Graphics in a game, he can't represent the company unless they legally permit him to do so. I think they made a public relations mistake by preventing him from accepting the award. And I believe that the game won a couple of awards. But the point is that he is probably the best known person working for Konami, whether he still works there or not. I think it benefits Konami to be magnanimous about it and allow him to appear. They chose not to do that, which suggests that the relationship between Mr. Kojima and Konami has risen officially to the level called acrimonious. I think you can take that as a signal that although the official statement that Mr. Kojima is on vacation, is the position of both parties, he's probably not coming back. Hope that's responsive, Kevin, with an I. Thanks for asking. Our next question, also from SIFTD, is from SMC92. How does Black Friday affect game companies? I've seen many people waiting to pick up consoles or certain games on Black Friday as they are cheaper, but how much does this hurt the platform holders? That's a good question. I would say it doesn't hurt the platform holders in the aggregate because they sell more consoles. It doesn't hurt them on game discounts at all because the platform holders get paid their royalty on the full retail price. So the guys, Sony and Microsoft, and I guess Nintendo, sell more consoles on Black Friday, even though they're discounted. And so I guess the right answer is it costs them $50 if they discount an Xbox One from $349 down to $299 on Black Friday. Some portion of that discount is borne by the retailer, and some portion is borne by Sony or Microsoft. And so probably it's split about equally. It probably costs Sony or Microsoft $25 to sponsor that discount, but they're getting an Xbox One or a PS4 in the hands of a gamer, and they're hopeful that that gamer is going to buy lots of stuff, either by a download or in stores, and so they're going to buy more games, or they're going to buy more downloaded games, or more video on demand, possibly more arcade type games. So I think that the lifetime value of a PlayStation 4 Xbox One customer is probably something like $500 to $1,000 to Sony or Microsoft, and it just matters to them to get the consoles in the hands of those gamers so they can capture that $500 or $1,000 over the rest of that gamer's life. The other thing is that the platform holders make a ton of money on their live services. So Xbox Live and PlayStation Network if you can convince somebody to sign up for that, the incremental subscriber is almost pure profit. So if you're paying, Sony $50 or Microsoft $60 a year, and you remain an Xbox Live or PSN customer for the next 10 years, they're making another $500 or $600 in perpetuity. So it's a really good deal for them. And so I think that's really why they're so aggressive about Black Friday bundles. Remember, Black Friday tends to be a gift giver holiday, not a self-purchase holiday. Guys who are going to buy for themselves already have a console. Guys who don't have a console for that year. Guys who don't have a console as of Black Friday, put it on a Christmas list, and they're getting that as a gift from a loved one. So, those of you who have wealthy loved ones, you're getting consoles for Christmas. Those of you who have either cheap or not wealthy loved ones should get a SIFTD.net subscription as a gift. And remember, it's SIFTD.net/gifted, and you can request one, or you can put it on your Amazon.com wish list. There is an impact of Black Friday on game companies. I want to go back to this. The publishers do, in fact, discount software on Black Friday. And you typically will see $60 games discounted to $40 for like a day. And the publishers do that in part to juice sales, in part because they want to get people talking about their games. You may have noticed this November that we have about the most competitive November for big game releases we've ever had. We had Halo and Assassin's Creed come out right at the end of October. We had Call of Duty come out on November 6th. We had Fallout on November 10th, and we had Star Wars Battlefront come out on November 17th. So super, super crowded. And all those games are kind of competing for mind share on Black Friday. Anybody who wanted to play Fallout or Halo or Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed or Star Wars had it before Black Friday, but there's 5 games that are potentially on people's Christmas lists. And so I think you're seeing discounting to kind of get grandma to say, well, little Johnny wanted a new game for his PS4 or his Xbox One, and she goes to the store and says, what should I buy? Oh, there's Star Wars for $40. So she's more likely to buy Star Wars for $40 than to buy Call of Duty for $60, for example. And I think that they discount in order to win that person over. That is probably an incremental sale for the guy who discounted to $40. So they're still making a little profit, and they really want to have bragging rights about how many units they sold. So yes, it compresses their profit, but in the aggregate, they probably make more overall dollar profits because they sold more units. Okay, we have a question from SIFTD from Zet Saber. How can Activision justify spending $5.9 billion to acquire King and not use that money towards development of new IP? Well, Zet Saber, I don't understand why you believe that Activision has a finite amount of capital to spend. So that's an incorrect assumption. It isn't either or. Activision will spend whatever it chooses to on development of new IP. So buying King didn't suddenly drain Activision's bank account to the point where it can no longer afford to do anything. The $5.9 billion it spent on King gives it access to King's $900 million in cash. So the net cost was only $5 billion. And King generates about $800 million a year in what we call in the finance world free cash flow. So by spending $5 billion, Activision's getting $800 million a year in free cash flow. Now, if King doesn't grow that at all, then it's a 6-year payback. So Activision will get its $5 billion back after 6 years. If King is able to grow its free cash flow, then Activision's paying for the acquisition, and then they get to own what's left after the payback. So it's really not a bad acquisition at all. So let's think about what Activision's going to do with King, because nobody really knows. So I am going to speculate because I don't know, all right? So King makes these dopey puzzle games, and by dopey, I mean Candy Crush. I am on level 14, 20 something. So I'm committed, and I spend about $20 a month. And the reason I spend money is not because I'm a cheater. I finish every level without spending money. I go back and replay every level to get 3 stars so that I can have my face smiling down upon all my friends when they get there, so that they can see who had the highest score on every level. And yes, I do have the highest score on every level. So if you're watching this and you find a level where you're ahead of me, I probably didn't notice, let me know. I will go back and spend money and kick your butt. Anyway, some people think that that's a dead game and it's going away. So I said, I'm on like level 1420 or 1430 or something. My wife is on level 700 and she's been playing for 6 months longer than me. She is not going to get to level 1400 for 2 or 3 more years. And she also spends money. And she has about 100 friends who still play. So the idea that we're all going to stop playing tomorrow because we all get bored is lame. Sorry, we're not going to stop playing. There's a problem with free-to-play games, and that is they're free. If you play Words with Friends, which is not a King game, you sit and you watch a 15-second, typically, video commercial before you're allowed to play. I've never met anybody who bitched and moaned about having to sit through a 15-second ad before they play Words with Friends. But you don't sit through an ad when you play King games. Why not? Well, there's about 6 million people out of 330 million unique King players who spend money. Let's multiply that times 10. Let's pretend that 60 million people have spent money in the past or will spend money in the future. And Bobby's going to figure out who those people are. So let's not advertise to them. But let's advertise to the other 270 million people. My math is if you deliver just 1 ad per session to those people at the beginning of the session, instead of an orange King loading screen, you get a 15-second ad, you make about $120 million a quarter. So if you make $120 million a quarter from advertising, and if you pay 25% to your sales force to sell those ads, you end up growing King's EBITDA by 50%. Well, if EBITDA grows by 50%, it's worth probably a 15 multiple, and Activision got a screaming bargain. It's probably worth $10 billion more than they paid. So guess what? I think this is a good acquisition. I think it's highly likely King is going to make a Clash of Clans ripoff. They're going to copy the model. Clash of Clans essentially is a tower defense game. You defend your castle. Imagine if they make that Clash of Clans ripoff game and they reskin it and they call it World of Warcraft Dungeon Defender. Can you even imagine? So instead of a tower defense game where you defend your castle, you're defending your dungeon. Instead of a bunch of, archers and giants and whatever, you've got World of Warcraft characters on both sides. That's kind of cool. I think that game is a several $100 million a year game. Imagine if they call it, World of StarCraft Planet Defender. Well, imagine if they call it World of Diablo Hell Defender. Whatever. I think that if you start making games based on recognizable Blizzard IP, you actually have something in that mobile world. So frankly, I think this acquisition is brilliant. I think Bobby Kotick is smarter than you and me and everybody else on YouTube and SIFTD who's watching this show. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. And so let me correct you. I think that how could they not justify spending $5.9 billion? This is brilliant. And by the way, I think they're going to develop new IP within the King structure and mint money. So I think it's a huge win for Activision and its shareholders, and I think they did the right thing. We have a question from SIFTD from Ultimate Brent. So Ultimate Brent, why do so many game companies release games in the same week of November? Does this result in lost sales? Does a game like Assassin's Creed Syndicate get a boon from sidestepping it? Quality shines through, and crap also shines through. So, Assassin's Creed was a mediocre game. I mean, it's mid to high 70s Metacritic score. Star Wars, low 70s. Call of Duty, low 80s. Halo and Fallout, mid 80s. And although I don't think the highest rated games are necessarily going to be the biggest sellers, they benefit more from Metacritic score than they do from the timing of the launch. The right answer is that everybody wants to get their game out in front of Christmas so gift givers can buy it. And, Activision looked at the release calendar and said, if you go back and look at the history of Call of Duty, I actually remember in 2009, the game came out on November 10th. And I remember the ad was 11, 10, 9, like a countdown. So, that game usually comes out in the week that begins with November 7th or 8th. So it normally comes out on a Tuesday. All games come out on Tuesday, usually around November 9th or 10th or 11th. And this year it came out on November 6th. Look at your calendar. That was a Friday. Why did they bring Call of Duty out on a Friday when every other Call of Duty in history in the US came out on a Tuesday? And the reason it came out on Friday was because Fallout was coming out on November 10th, and Activision didn't want to run up against that. And Star Wars Battlefront, which is arguably a very close multiplayer first-person shooter type game and very similar. Obviously, it's Star Wars, but and you can fly an X-wing and you can take down a walker, but similar in construct to Call of Duty, was coming out November 17th. And I think Activision in particular feared Star Wars Battlefront and wanted to get out in front of it. So they gave themselves 2 full weekends ahead of Star Wars Battlefront because they wanted to make sure that their loyal fans had nothing else to buy for at least the first 4 days, and then no Star Wars to buy for at least the first 10 days. So yes, you're right. People move things around in order to get out in front. It turns out Star Wars Battlefront didn't get a great Metacritic score. Assassin's Creed, which came out earlier, didn't get a great Metacritic score. Halo did. Halo came out October 27th and got a pretty good score, but fortunately for Activision, that's Xbox One only, so it wasn't available on PS4. Assassin's Creed, not very good. Activision owned the weekend prior to Fallout. Fallout owned the next, the rest of the month. But again, people do this to kind of get in front of holidays so grandma puts it on her shopping list. It actually benefits everybody to have lots of choice. I think as a consumer, you're not going to buy them all. You can't afford to buy them all. You certainly don't have the hours to play them all. But no, not every game is for everybody. So I guess my favorite analogy is there's a movie coming out on December 18th, which is highly anticipated, and it's called Sisters. And what's notable about that movie is it comes out the same day as Star Wars. And the stars of Sisters, Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, did a little parody, about how they're going to kick Star Wars butt, and how people have been collecting Sisters lunchboxes since they were little kids. But the truth is, everybody isn't going to see Star Wars. Only 98% of people who go to see movies are going to see Star Wars. And there still are, date movies that are going to be like romantic comedies or chick flicks. So Sisters will work for middle-aged people who want to go see a comedy instead of want to see Star Wars. And there will be people who don't want to stand in line and wait for Star Wars. So, there will be other choices. That's what happens. If you don't want to play a first-person shooter, I'm playing Fallout. I haven't even opened Call of Duty yet. I'll get around to it in January, but no need for me to jump on it now. So really, I think more choice is good for consumers. And if you're lucky, you'll end up seeing games get discounted rapidly because they're not selling as well. So far, I really haven't seen that. I saw it on Black Friday, but I haven't seen it since. I think you're going to see these games pretty much hold their $60 price point into February, March. So good question. And no, Assassin's Creed didn't get a boon because it wasn't a good enough game. I don't think that it really made that much difference. What a great name here. We have a question this week from SIFTD.net from Tomb Raiders, or Tom Braiders. Which do you think it is? I'm thinking it's Tomb Raiders, but it could be Tom Braiders. What do you think? It could be. I never actually thought of Tomb Raider all put together as one word, so it looks like it could be Tom Braider. So Tom, When do you think we'll see a new game from Valve? And do you think we will ever see a new Half-Life game? Yeah, I'm going to boldly predict that Half-Life 3 is coming out in 2013. Oh, wait a minute. I predicted that in 2010. So whenever I'm speaking, it's coming out 3 years later. So it's 2015 now. Half-Life 3 is coming up by 2018, I guarantee it. You know, Valve is making so damn much money doing everything that they're doing right that I don't know if they ever need to make another game. I mean, Dota 2 almost seemed like an afterthought, and I think they're minting money on that. You know, they've made Portal games. I'm positive we'll see another Portal game, because why not? It's relatively easy to make, they're fun, and they're really, really good games. I've been, you know, thinking they were making Half-Life 3 for years. I was absolutely convinced that the Steam machine was going to launch with Half-Life 3, and that was wrong. So I don't know when you're going to get anything from these guys. They work on their own schedule. They are all flush millionaires. They're killing it. They deserve to be. They earned every penny of it. And I think that they're more motivated by making super quality content than worrying about, you know, generating an incremental profit from getting a game out quickly. So I'm confident they're working on something, and I'm confident you're going to get something, but I don't have an answer. So 2018, that's my answer. All right, fellow babies, got a bold prediction for you for this week. Let's look forward to 2016. Best-selling game of the year. I'm going to make a bet, and I'm absolutely prepared to be wrong on this. The best-selling game of 2016 is not going to be Call of Duty, and let me tell you why. Call of Duty this fall is brought to you from Infinity Ward, and those are the guys who brought us Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, Infinity Ward had some shuffling of staff. They brought in my good friend Dave Stoll to run the studio. He is a supremely talented executive producer. He's one of the original Treyarch guys. He's good. He knows what he's doing. But he inherited that Infinity Ward team. They did a bad job on Ghosts. I know they've shuffled a lot of people in and out. And my guess is the Call of Duty title this coming fall is not going to be Ghosts 2. It's going to be something else. Possibly Modern Warfare 4. You know, I'm not really sure what they're going to do, but that would be my guess. But if ever there was a year that somebody could knock Call of Duty off its perch at the top, it is this year, because I think gamers who were burned by Ghosts are looking for an alternative. And I encourage EA to take advantage of the opportunity with Battlefield 5. If only DICE could get multiplayer right. So DICE has a whole lot of experience with Star Wars Battlefront. They are clearly learning from whatever mistakes they made with Battlefront, and they're going to work on getting Battlefield right. I was quite surprised at the low Metacritic scores for Star Wars, but DICE, I think, will get Battlefield 5 right. So I'm going to call Battlefield 5 as the top-selling game for 2016. That is a big stretch. It's going to take some real powder from EA. They're going to have to make a better game than Call of Duty, and Infinity Ward's going to have to mess it up. I am not calling that Infinity Ward will mess it up. I'm just making a bold prediction. At the beginning of the year, there's still 10 months before these games come out, and I hope that Dave and the Infinity Ward guys take the challenge. Prove me wrong, because I like them a ton. I would like them to be on top, but if ever there was a year that Battlefield could catch up, this is the one. Fellow babies, thanks for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you're a subscriber, you're seeing it real time. If not, you're watching on YouTube. And the only real penalty for watching on YouTube is you're not allowed to criticize anything I said, and you're watching it a week late. So if you want to catch it real time, you want to have an opportunity to criticize, join SIFTD.net. Nobody on SIFTD.net hates the Pach, so I'm not really worried about it. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.